Call to order. Public comment. Any, do we have any public?
None with their hands raised.
Okay, excellent. Item number 3, approval of prior minutes of August 5th, 2024. Would anyone like to make a motion? George is not here, so we're gonna have people step
Oh,
up.
sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the
Okay.
minutes.
Thanks, Pete. Do we have
I'm
a second?
stand by.
Do we have a second? If you said if you seconded, Sharon, you're muted. I didn't hear you.
No, I said I didn't read them, so I thought
Oh, okay.
I don't feel obligated to second them.
We can table it unless someone wants to make a leap of faith. Bob?
Yeah, I wasn't there, so I
Oh,
read
you
them.
weren't there. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You would not be a good candidate. Well, we'll just table it for now. No sense.
I'll take a look at them real quick.
Yeah, maybe we'll double back if you get a chance to look at it. If there's a lull in the meeting, we'll double back. But we'll do the table one of these times. Old business, none. New business. Architects report. Jeff, you're up.
Great. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Wazinski, principal at Tecton. I will keep my update brief. Since our last MBC meeting on the 5th of August, there was 13 RFIs that we responded to, 37 submittals that we had reviewed, and 5 PCOs approved, along with 2 additional site visits. And I do want to thank Robert. We had an extended Tecton team out there this past Friday, and we had about a dozen folks from our firm walking the site, and Robert was kind enough to spend about an hour and a half with us walking around the site. So I appreciate that very much so. The other update, just briefly, is the FF&E. There's a meeting tomorrow. It's the second out of 3 meetings, design review meetings that Catherine's having with the district. And the topics that they'll be reviewing tomorrow are all the specialty spaces. So the art, music, cafeteria, specialized ed, and then also the administrative and nurses suite. So after that meeting, we'll have one final wrap-up meeting, and then you'll likely see some kind of presentation of material, probably mid-November into December, with the target somewhere around PCR dates in early January sometime. So that's our update. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Jeff? Think we're good. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Next report, construction manager. Bob,
All right.
one. Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. So kind of a cool little new addition for this month is, now that we've had 2 drone flights, we can do a quick little summary of what you're looking at right now is actually from July 15th. So this is about a month ago. As I pull this cursor, you'll be able to see the progress we made over the last month as of August 15th. And you can see there's been a lot of progress.
Wow.
It's kind of cool to see how you
That's
wipe it.
cool.
So you see we went from, I'll go back and try to do this slowly, but we basically went from foundations and starting steel to now we have the slab in at A. We have 2 floors of steel down at B, and we're finishing up A. And then also you can see, so I'll go to the panoramas just to give you a little better zoom in as we do the actual progress here. But what you can see here is not only do we have the 2 stories of steel done, the main level and the roof at B, but we've actually went through and decked B. So we have people out now working on B as far as dropping in hangers and starting to do the lower level MEP rough. So that's huge. And then actually, since this was done last Thursday, we've actually basically filled in this derrick of steel here. So we'll tomorrow morning, set those last two ceremonial beams, which were a hit. If you see them tomorrow, you can see they're fully signed. I don't think there's an inch left on the beams to sign. So those luckily we brought two of them because the one of them wouldn't have been enough. But we'll fill that in, and then what we'll do is we'll end up going back and this mainly finishing the detailing with this steel, and then finishing up all this roof decking. Couple other highlights, and let me see if I can go back to. So one other cool thing to point out on this is if you look in this area, this is the geothermal well field. And you can see here, this is the full extent of the well field back in July when we had just finished drilling. As I pan through now, you can see, and I'll jump to this panel, but you can see we basically have half these geothermal wells connected, meaning the circuiting between the wells is now done, and we've actually backfilled for them. So I want to jump over to this panoramic. So that's the actual geothermal tank being ready to be set. And then we've got about 4 circuits done. So they started kind of right along here, right behind this tank. And we've been able to backfill. These are in progress here, so these aren't backfilled. So we're making good progress there. Probably 2 or 3 weeks left on the geothermal. And then there's other steps to connect it to the building. Obviously, much more to go with that, but the wells and the circuiting to this tank will be done. And then just the last part to kind of wrap up the construction progress. I'm going to jump over here. But outside the obvious with the steel, actually, let me change the side. Whoops, sorry. Let's get this. The other kind of key item to note is we've been doing working on the storm drainage. So you can sort of see here we've started to connect. That's a catch basin for the parking lot. We've put in a couple of structures. This water quality structure is actually getting set, in the process of being set now. But we've kind of come down here, and all the storm drainage has been complete through this area and started wrapping up towards our trailers over here. And that's kind of our basis to be able to start really wrapping up and finishing up these parking lots, getting the base in. We got to get the drainage in and kind of get them prepped, so as we move into the fall, we can actually start basing out these parking lots. A lot of this material over here is actually being screened and then brought over to the geothermal wells. So we're basically taking this material, moving it, reutilizing it where it needs to be used, and that's opening us up more real estate for the drainage work. Outside of that, just the last 2 little quick updates, and then I'll open up for questions. But basically, we've had our second superintendent start last week. So we have 2 superintendents now, 2 project engineers on the job, and myself. And our summer intern's still around for a couple more days. So we have 6 people in the Gilbane trailer. And then just I like to give you kind of the update on where we stand with MEP coordination. We're kind of pushing through to the finish line on that. The underground is obviously done, even in B, where we're just starting the underground plumbing and mechanical. Lower B, so the lower level of B has all been submitted, is in review. And then this whole main level area A, or main level, both A and B, are in the process of being wrapped up and submitted before the end of this week. So that's why we'll be ready to hit the ground running with our hangers and our MEP rough and all our follow-up work to the steel sequencing here. So any questions?
Looks great.
I got one question, Rob. I'm sorry, Woody, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Not to put you on the spot, Rob, but one of the things we talked about early on in the pre-construction phase was getting that lower field topsoil spread and seeded so that we had an extra growing season before we turned it over. So I spoke with you and Vinny last week, just figured to mention that's still in the works to get done this fall, right?
Yep. Yep, and that's why we're pushing to finish up this corner, get this to grade, and then we could start. There's not much utility work over in this corner. So once we get these wells done, we should be able to kind of clean up to the right over here and start looking at top dressing where the wells go, that well field.
Gotcha. And then, excuse me, the only other thing I was going to mention is just this, if you could give me a status update on the water service work.
Yep. Good point. So the water service work at this point through from Daniel Hand down Green Hill Road and then down Mungertown Road is in the ground and complete. There, sorry, I'm gonna try to zoom. We did the lateral, so what this little black shape here is actually one of the hydrants we installed. So we went through, we've done the hydrants off the water main. They're in process this week of doing the bridge crossing, and I apologize. I'll try to grab a picture of that for next meeting. And what that means are the concrete piers are in place, the beams across. We actually put the rollers and the pipe on that crossing, and they're in the process of, as of today, doing the connections. So before the end of this week, we'll be tied in on the two sides of that crossing. We'll then be able to pull off the road, leave the road open going forward, and then we'll just have testing left. So we'll have to go through and probably over 2 to 3 weeks chlorinate the water line. That takes a little bit of time. We have to do it in sections, and it takes 72 hours to clear the test. So it'll take us probably close to 3 weeks to finish that testing and make it fully operational.
Great. So is the plan to use water for the on-site water once it's
Yeah, so once we can, we're all coordinated. We'll put a meter on one of the hydrants over here and actually set up temporary water. The water there is still some water we've been pumping out of like clean groundwater as we've been these wells and the circuiting. So what we've actually been doing in the meantime is we've been able to grab some water off the water truck. So we actually have water available, which is nice versus having to drive down the Daniel Hand and fill off a hydrant. But ultimately it'll be nice to get off that water line, the hydrant water line.
any neighbors itching to tie in?
Not that I heard.
I think the town gets reimbursed for that, some level of connection costs, so.
There were 2 or 3 that asked, but they haven't, I haven't heard anything from them recently. Just the original couple requests.
Yeah, because if your well goes bad, it's pretty tempting. Got any other questions for Robert?
Rob, I'll just ask the obvious. We got about a year to go. You gonna make it? What do you think?
Yep, on time.
All right.
We're actually right on schedule to the day. So there'll be a lot.
Switch gear shows up on time.
Yes, yeah, that's still tracking toward in November. But yeah, we have multiple trades starting, so we're probably gonna go from like 50 people right on site now. We'll probably be pushing 80 to 100 in about 3-4 weeks as we have roofers starting, the full framing crew, the masons are starting. The masons have started mobilizing. They actually put hydromobile in this stairwell as of this morning. So we'll start doing these 2 stairs. We're going to do this one first and then jump over and start this one. And then they'll keep rolling right behind the carpenters doing the brick exterior as they can. Oh, sorry. I forgot I stopped sharing so you couldn't see what I was pointing out there, but
We knew what you were pointing at, though. We had a pretty good idea.
but
Looks
Yeah.
great. You guys are doing a nice job.
thank you. It's getting busy. Don't be strangers. Feel free to stop by and take a tour.
Absolutely. Thanks you, Robert. Adam, I think you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. I gotta change around the agenda for next time, so that way Rob's cool, drone photos. I don't have to go after those each and every time. Those are awesome. Just a couple of points to touch off of some of the items that Rob and Jeff had mentioned. On the geo wells, I know those obviously a big focal point in pre-construction and getting those in and designed. Both Cole Ronan and Salas O'Brien BVH have been out there, tag teaming the work to perform inspections as the work has been going in. And we've gotten the first 2 of 3 grout tests back, and those have been satisfactory. So nothing to report that's problematic at all with the GOLs. Those are going in well. Like Rob mentioned, the topping off ceremony tomorrow at 9:30. It's just a small occasion for obviously SBC members and some town staff. But that should be a nice kind of buttoning up to the major steel installation. In addition to, we're kind of talking about major building components with steel and starting up envelope. There's been a fair push also to get out ahead on some of the end criteria and inspections for commissioning. A couple of weeks ago, I think we had mentioned that there was the kickoff coordination, first commissioning agent coordination for mechanical systems. We're planning on having the envelope kickoff here as well. And in addition to those, Salas O'Brien is setting up some of the processes in place for kind of pulling back from when you're, get everything finally done, tested, installed. Okay, before that, you need to schedule the test, identify who's doing it, go through the prerequisites, come up with the pre-functional checklists, all those items. So that's all work that's also happening in the background starting now. So that way, by the time, the 9 months, a year from now comes into place, it's just kind of marching along a well-established path. And then the last thing I'll note before we get into change orders and the invoice packet is that, as Jeff alluded to, we've got some sequence of final FF&E meetings that are going through with the staff. And one of the things that college is going to be working on over the next couple of weeks is planning out all of those approvals and kind of putting that back, going to go back to our refrigerator schedule potentially for all the various approvals that we had, like with phase 1 and phase 2, and we'll need those as well. So again, nothing for the immediate future, but again, it's one of those items where you want to get those on the books starting soon, so that way people aren't surprised when we need to have couple of board meeting approvals. This SBC obviously approves all these items. Before all that, you have to know what you're approving. So kind of planning that all out for the rest of the year as we get into the final bits of furniture selection. And then we also have to do the playgrounds and the ABIT. So those are all items that are, again, working on in the background, but just kind of reporting out to the group here today.
Got it. Moving on to item number 5. Review potential awards of procurement items.
Yes, let me share my screen here. Per usual, we've got ATPs and motion. We'll start with the Gilbane ATPs. Run through all these and then we can kind of circle back. ATP 15 is for just over 33,000. This is for overflow scuppers. This was actually an item that was caught and initially coordinated during the bidding process as a bid RFI. And it was identified, and there was initially an allowance carried to capture the scope. As part of the GMP coordination and ultimate contract with Gilbane, the allowance was pulled out because there's a cap on the number of allowances you're typically allowed through the state. And so because this one still needed some detailing, it was pulled out to serve as a separate change order. The drawings did show some scuppers, but there was a gap in between what was shown versus what the bidder needed to fully flesh out the bid. So what happened was that all the scuppers were pulled out of scope. And so now they're being put back in via this change order. So it's a little bit of a funky process, but that was the cleanest way to kind of capture the scope at the time and contractual negotiations we had at the moment. And obviously Tecton, Gilbane, Colors have all reviewed all these per usual. So any questions on this one before we move on to the next item? Item 2, ATP 26. This is one of several credits we have on the docket for tonight, which is always good. Credit for just under $14,000. This is for modifying the site camera and wireless access point scope. So if you recall, we had an alternate during the time of GMP for the pollinator path with the gravel and some trees and some more formal items that the alternate ultimately wasn't approved, with the notion that something else might want to go out onto the east there. That said, the path kind of swung way out, and there were a couple of cameras intended to be on some poles with some wireless access points, where with that alternate scope no longer being in place, you just have cameras on poles sticking out in the middle of the field doing not much. So this scope contemplates removing 2 of those cameras and wireless access point infrastructure from the scope, and moving one of them closer to the basketball courts. That was coordinated with Art Sickle, just to make sure we got the wireless coverage that's desired and the camera coverage that's desired, but not having to sort of cameras out serving a purpose that's no longer approved and in scope. So the net result is a credit of $13,879. Any questions on this one? Hearing none. ATP 28. This is for $5,048. This is for the formal abandonment. I know it sounds kind of like a flippant word, but you have the water monitoring wells we had for groundwater that were put in, but right after the land was purchased, I believe, to help establish some of the design parameters and get through some of our approvals. There were 9 of them. Those are no longer needed, and they should be formally closed off and sealed and submitted to the municipality for documentation that those are all closed out. So that wasn't in anyone's scope. Some of them are actually in the building footprint. So this is for the subcontractor to actually go through and take it through to final completion, file the documents, and close those up. Like I said, there were 9 of them across the site. Any questions on this one? Oh, okay. ATP number 30. This is another credit for just over 1,500. This is for a substitution request to a different manufacturer of the metal roofing that's going on the canopies. The original specifications included this manufacturer, PacClad, as one of the 3 providers. As part of the bid RFI process, there were some questions about availability and whether or not a different provider could be instituted instead. So PacClad was actually formally removed from the specification. Going through with Silktown Roofing, who was the subcontractor that won this package. They then came back and asked if it could be put back in. There was obviously no concern from the design team on a material basis because it was part of their original specification. There was some savings to be yielded though, so it's sort of a win-win. The subcontractor got to provide the material they wanted, and the town gets the credit back for the metal roofing panels for part of it. So that's what this ATP is for. Any questions here? And then ATP 31. This is the last of the Gilbane change orders. Ended at yet another credit for $2,309 for a change in the colors for the metal wall panels. They were scoped out and priced as a custom color. Custom colors not needed, so standard color is being provided, and that yields some savings. So that $2,300 will come back to the town's contingency fund from this change order. Any questions on this one?
Keep coming with the credits, Adam. Phil, take as long as you want if you got these credits.
You know, every time I talk to Nick, he's just dying to get back home.
Take all you want.
All right, Graham, do you want to pause here for motions on ETPs, or do you want to go through the BVH one as well? Then flash.
Yeah, let's pause here. Let's get,
Right.
now that we got George on the line, we got some,
So I do have draft motions here, for the 5 ETPs I just mentioned. Let me know if you can't see those.
would anyone like to make a motion?
Would you like me to read again?
Absolutely, Sharon. Thank you.
Okay, let me do that. I make a motion to approve ATP 15 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $33,737 for overflow roof scuppers per bulletin 002.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve ATP 26 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract for the credit in the amount of $13,879 for modifications to the exterior site cameras and wireless access per bulletin 008.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve ATP 28 for the change to Gilbane's existing contract in the amount of $5,048 for the formal closing abandonment of 9 existing groundwater wells.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve ATP 30 for the change in Gilbane's existing construction contract for a credit in the amount of $1,550 in consideration for the roofing subcontractor's use of pack-clad metal roofing in the exterior canopies per their substitution request.
Do we have a second?
Sure.
All in
I'll second
favor? Like, oh,
All right.
that.
I'm
Whatever.
making a motion to approve ATP 31 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract for credit in the amount of $2,309 for changing the metal wall panels from custom color to standard color.
do we have a second? Woody got slipped in, Woody slipped in on that one.
Make the minutes difficult.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
All right, you're gonna scroll or is that it?
Is that it? I think that was it.
Okay.
And back to Adam on the,
Yes, thank you. So as I mentioned in the preamble email to the SBC, there's a proposal provided by Salis O'Brien, formerly BVH, who's the commissioning agent for the project. As part of the construction phase, there's a number of testing and inspection services that the owner provides, some of which the SBC has already voted to approve. For example, our materials testing agent, Tri-State. But there are a host of we call them commissioning related testing that the owner is to provide per the specifications and contracts. So some of it's envelope testing, some of it is specific to some of the pressurizations of the building, like a blower door test, etc. The overall scope for these testing items is likely on the order of maybe 40,000, 50,000, something like that for the scope of services that are needed. Maybe more, maybe less, but well above what would be just sort of a simple change order to any given party. That said, there are 3 tests that will come up sooner rather than later in the construction process that also lend itself well for them to be performed by the commissioning agent just based on their nature, namely the ongoing adhesion testing of the air and vapor barrier, the leakage testing for the air vapor barrier, and the we call it fog testing. The fog test, the first 2 I mentioned were actually written in the specifications from Kohler Roman and Tecton to be performed by the owner. Fog testing is not, however, it was proposed here for potential approval based on the good success that was had at a similar project, Mansfield Elementary, which is a net zero building that achieved very good blower door test results. And it was a project that I had worked on with Kohler Roden and BVH, where they basically went through, and as you complete a section of the building, they go through and they take pressurized fog and kind of push it through components that maybe looks, on an inspection, they look like they're sealed up, but the smoke finds its way through, and you work through, you identify what the potential problems are, and you catch them then, as opposed to sealing up the building, doing a blower door test, and then finding out there's, leaks in the building that are costing the town energy and air tightness. So the testing that's proposed by BVH herein, the total proposals for 9,000, which is actually very favorable. It's the same daily rate as what we had a couple of years ago for the same, for even less amounts of scope. So there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained here, hence this breakout proposal. And then the notion is that the rest of the testing, that lower door, etc., curtain wall testing that would be done from the owner's side, Colliers would develop the request for proposals to put out for public bid for those services. But because these are sooner and there's good efficiencies with the commissioning agent, they're being proposed to be added on to BVH Salis O'Brien's existing contract.
Yeah, and Adam, these are within the budget for testing you had in the master.
Right, we had identified some of yes, it's through the contingency log that we've been carrying to add on to the commissioning agent's scope of services.
Got it. Does anyone have any questions for Adam about this approach?
Oh, I'm glad we're doing it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Better now than later after the building.
Yep.
Got it. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure,
If
I'll
Adam-
make a motion that we
Sorry.
accept that.
Any
yes.
questions for Adam before he pulls up the motion?
Want me to make that?
Sure.
Okay, motion to approve invoice packet. Oops, wrong thing.
Yeah,
Motion to
that's fine,
approve
yep.
the quote dated 8/15/24 in the amount of 9,000 for air barrier testing services from Salis O'Brien as a change order to their existing commissioning agent contract under PO 202-31829.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sure, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. And then, per usual, moving in agenda item 6, the invoice packet for this evening includes Gilbane's 5th pay application for just under 2.7 million. Tecton's monthly construction administration invoice for 35,000. Collier's monthly invoice for 27,000. And then our stormwater monitor, Nathan Young, with their, I believe it's their second invoice for 1,400 for a total of just over 2.7 million.
Yeah, I guess we're starting to cook with some gas here, as they say. $3 million. So, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll do it. Motion to approve invoice package dated 8/19/2024, including invoices from Tecton, Colliers, and Nafis and Young in the amount of $64,620.33, and the construction payment requisition number 5 from Gilbane in the amount of $2,695,026.52 for the total approval of $2,759,646.85.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
That. I'll second that, Graham.
Okay, thanks, Woody. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Beautiful. Moving on to item numbers, unless Adam has anything else, I'll move on to item number 7. Public comment. Jeannie, do we have anyone in the public with their hand raised?
No one has raised their hand, and I don't know if you want to go back to you tabled your minutes.
I do. That was read my mind. So now that we're back on,
I'll second that. I looked at him.
Okay, you did. Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Don't like to leave those things hanging out there. Item number 8, remarks. Anyone have any remarks, general comments, questions? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll do that.
You sure?
Let's adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have a second? Woody seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
See you later, guys.
Take
Yeah.
care, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.